What we're going to have a look at today as our first lesson is what actually makes an engaging image, because at the end of the day, we're not just documentary photographers where we just press the button to record an event. We're really trying to make great images. And so when we're trying to make an engaging image, we have ourselves. These are the elements that contribute to it. We've got our camera and we've got the world. And a lot of us expect the camera to know what it's doing and for it to take the engaging image, or we expect the world to be utterly amazing, that all we need to do and all the camera needs to do is record it. And so it doesn't matter what camera we've got, we just want the world to be looking absolutely fabulous and press the button. But unfortunately, in most cases, that's not the case. The world looks pretty ordinary and our camera is not quite sure what we're trying to take a photograph of and is never quite sure what it needs to have in focus. What we did last year was to talk about how you could control the camera to actually make it an amazing image. And we looked at how we could change the focal point so that we could tell the viewer by what's in focus, what the subject was. We looked at how we could use the depth of field to adjust blurriness and sharpness of different parts of the image to help the narrative. We looked at the different lenses we could use, whether we used a long lens or a wide angle lens, and the impact using different lenses gave our images. And we also looked at how to move that focus point around. And I kept on saying to you during last year, I'm teaching you this so that when you see an amazing image, you can actually capture it. But we don't often see amazing images. We see things that have a potential to be an amazing image. And we see other people's photos of exactly the same event. And you guys must have seen this at U3A when we go out to a garden and see other people's photos and go, oh, I saw that plant and I photographed that plant and it didn't look like that. So what did they do that I'm not doing? And that's what we want to get into this year, is just have a look at what are the elements that make it amazing. So for last year, we looked very much at the analytical and technical side of the camera that we were using, and that varied from our iPhones to quite sophisticated mirrorless cameras, because we have the whole range. And you will notice all of last year I kept on saying it's not the camera. It's not the camera that makes an amazing image. The actual reality of what makes an amazing image is you. It's not just the analytical right brain controlling the camera. And that's what a lot of people, when they see good photographs, or when they'll look at my photographs, they'll say to me, the first thing, you must have an amazing camera. Well, yeah, I have got an amazing camera. But if I gave it to them and said, okay, well, you press the button, I don't think they'd end up with my photographs, because it requires, yes, that analytical left brain allows you to work out what lens you need on and what aperture you need to set and what shutter speed and ISO and focus. And it allows you to analyze the world in front of you to work out what that should be. But at the end of the day, if you just press the button at that point, you'll just end up with a snapshot. It won't be memorable in any shape or form. It'll be correctly exposed, but that's about all. What you need is to actually engage your right brain, because as humans, we have two ways of thinking. We have our left brain thinking, which is very analytical, technical, mathematical. And we have our right brain way of thinking, which is very creative and inspired. And it's where our music and our art and our literature come from, is that right brain. But the two have to be thinking at the same time. About a third of the world is predominantly one type of thinking. Another third is the other type of thinking. And a third of us are both right and left brain thinking people. And they tend to be the people that are photographers. In my experience, photography is where science meets art. And I think that's what I love about it. I am a scientist, I am a mathematician, that's my background, but I love the artistic side of photography, that it allows me to do that. So those two have to work together. And all last year we talked about the left brain stuff. This year we're talking about the right brain stuff of what is the essence that we need to distill from an image to make it absolutely amazingly gorgeous? And that is the three aspects that make an amazing image. I remember when I started studying photography, I wanted them to bottle up what was the essence of a good image. I wanted someone to really distill it down for me, so I knew when I went out with my camera that I wasn't wasting my time, that I would know what to look for. Well, it's going to take still almost an entire year to see all of the attributes of what makes an amazing image. And what makes an amazing image in photography is very similar to what makes an amazing image in art. It's what's aesthetically pleasing. What, as humans, do we look at and go, oh, that's just beautiful? And what makes it beautiful? Is it the colors that you've used? Is it the position of the subject? Is it the light that's landing on the subject? What makes it aesthetically pleasing? And we're going to investigate as human beings what we intrinsically see as being aesthetically pleasing. The other thing is with photography is the timing. You can have the best camera in the world, but it's you, the person, that presses that button at that exact instant that you need to capture that photo. And the timing may be something, could be sort of generalized timing, like I want beautiful afternoon golden light because I know it lights up this particular building, garden, whatever, to be just amazing in an autumn late afternoon. That could be timing. It could be the timing of having to press it right at the point of time that you get that sparkle in someone's eyes and the smile on their face and you capture their soul. It could be the timing of a mother reaching out to a child with the look on her face of encouragement and endearment. So as photographers, that timing or that decisive moment is absolutely critical to get it right. And the other thing, like every good image, it has some sort of connection with the viewer. The images that don't have any connection with the viewer are ones that people, when they're flipping through a magazine, just go, next one, next one, next one, next one. But the ones they stop at are the ones that say something to them. And so that narrative is sort of an extra sophistication that goes into an image that makes us want to keep going back and back and back to it. It's one that we choose to hang on our wall because we know that every time we look at it, it will speak to us. When you're taking a photograph, these are the things that we need to think about, is all of the aspects that go into making that engaging image. So that means that you need to engage your mind. So photography is just not reactive. Oh, I saw something nice, I'll click the button, move on. You have to really get your camera goggles on because you see things differently when you've got your camera goggles on. You also have to think, why am I photographing this? Is it because it's the most beautiful color and the way that those reds are highlighted against that green background and the way the sun's shining on it at this angle and just making those stamens pop? Is that why I'm photographing? What made it special? Why did I pick up the camera? And again, that's engaging your brain. So the whole time you're out there shooting, you should be looking to see what looks an amazing image. You should be thinking about, why do I think it's an amazing image? And then you need to think about, what do I want the photograph to look like? I'm going to capture this, but I need to make sure that I check all my camera settings to make sure that I've got the right depth of field, that I've got the focus in the right place, that I've got the exposure right. But I also need to think about, what do I want the photograph to look like? And this comes from your image literacy. And I would highly recommend, whenever you see a photograph that's been published in a newspaper or a magazine or a book, it's a good photograph because no one would have published it if it wasn't good. Have a look at it and go, why do I like that? What did that photograph do to make that look like that? If I took a photograph next time of a family together, that would be a really good way to compose them because it's really captured my imagination. And you can see the relationships between the people by the way they're looking at each other. So it's about engaging your brain. If you have a situation to photograph, just going back into your memory and going, I've seen a photo like this. And what they did is they made the stamens really sharp and did it use a depth of field that allowed the petals to be blurry and the whole background was blurred, so it looked really artistic and it looked fantastic. So that's what I'm going to do for this image. Always have that repertoire in your mind when you go out to shoot. And so when we go on a workshop, see what other people have done. Google pier photos, boat photos at piers, and see the imagination that other people have put into their images. And that will be a repertoire in your mind to look for those sorts of images. So get your seeing right. And the other is there a message here? What do you feel when you're looking at this? And that's what you want the viewer to feel. And so if you're out on the bay and it's windy and squally and chaotic and whatever, then how do you capture that? Do you capture the waves splashing? And the way that you do that is to get a fast shutter speed. So it's about, what's the message I'm trying to relate here? How will I need to set the camera to do that? And what is the final image going to look like? And all of this is before you press the button. So it's not just pick up the camera, press the button. It's always thinking. And when I'm out with my camera, if people speak to me, I often don't hear them. My mind's going like this, and I get home exhausted because every image you have to think of all these things. That's how you make amazing ones. If you just want snapshots, you just pick up the camera and press the button. But all of this may only take 10 seconds, 20 seconds to think through. But what you will end up with is predictably amazing images. Every image actually has the photography in it, who you are to it. Just like you bring who you are to your cooking. You bring the experiences that you lived, you bring the culture that you come from, you bring your mother's cooking into it, and you can tell the sort of the background of what you're eating. It's the same with a photograph. You bring all of your skills, your knowledge, your experiences, your education, art. If you're an artist, you'll bring your art to it. All of that actually ends up in your image. Anybody and anything can make an amazing photograph. You just have to get the lighting right, the timing right, and the composition right, and the subject is merely an actor in the play, and really not a very important one. The camera, people go, oh, it's all about the camera. You can take good photos, you've got a good camera. But we've seen amazing photos come out of iPhones in this group. Any camera can take a good photo. It contributes in that it allows you to quickly do it. The focus is sharper. It's not the camera. The thing is, it's you. If you can get this right and left brain working together and get your ideas in there before you go out for a shoot, and when you do see something, go, oh, I've seen something like this, and it may be a piece of art. You go, I know how I'm going to take this one because I know what I want it to look like. You and the circumstances which you operate that camera, that is the important thing. So it's you that adds the fairy dust and that takes something that is a very ordinary scene that most people on their iPhones just click and it just looks like a snapshot. And it's you that adds the fairy dust that we all go, oh, wow, that's amazing. And that is what we're going to be learning this year, is how do you bottle up fairy dust? So you need to think about why you're taking the photo. And this doesn't have to be a fancy, esoteric, amazing, philosophical reason. It just might mean, I love the way the sun bounces off the waves. I think the way that white boat is outlined against that blue water just looks amazing. That's why you're taking the photo. You go, okay, well, if that's what I love, how am I going to get that boat in focus? Because that's the subject of the photo. I need to ensure that I've got a depth of field that enables it to, all of the boat to be in focus. And I need to make sure that I set the focal point at that point. And I need to make sure that I don't overexpose the photo because the boat's white, don't want it washed out. So that's where you engage the left brain and go, all right, I need to get settings on the camera right in order to get the boat against the beautiful blue sea, correct. So you need to also work out what's in and what's out. Is the cluttered mess next to the boat, is that distracting? Or do you just want to silhouette the boat? Does the mess next to the boat give you an environmental photo? Is that what you're looking for? or should you exclude it? And that's about you moving around and zooming in and out and making the decision at the time about what looks good, what satisfies your vision for this image. You need to work out where you're going to stand and how the background will look. So it might just mean that 2 paces to the right would clear up your background and allow that boat to really be silhouetted against it. Whereas if you're 2 steps to the left, you've now got some clutter because there's some other boats behind there and they're not really giving you the vision that you need. If you've got the vision, you know then what to do. And then the timing. If you want to get it just as that boat starts to sort of sail into the rule of thirds, then you know when to click the button. So you have to sort of think, where do I want it positioned if it's moving? When do I need to press the shutter to make that happen? But this is how you will become a photographer. I'm just going to quickly show you where you go from subject to vision. I was in a park in Palermo, Sicily, and I'd just done a bus tour where it was a bus tour all about the mafia and how Palermo was the hotbed of the mafia. I'm in a park. You can see the other people. It's summer. It's a hot day. This is a man walking through the park with a scarf, an overcoat, a briefcase, and a hat. And did he stick out like a sore thumb? I'm sort of, in the back of my head's gone, looks like a mafia to me. And I thought, well, I'm going to take a photo of him because he's just amazing. But he was strolling through this park at a fairly decent pace. And I couldn't run up in front of him to take the photo. I had to sort of surreptitiously take it from behind. And I thought, he will make an amazing subject. I just need the right background and not this lighting. I mean, that is really hard. So my only alternative was to follow him, and I did. So I finally found my background. Because I lost him for a moment, and I've walked around the corner and there he is. He's finally stopped. I picked up my camera, and the moment I picked up my camera, he turned his back. So I got the settings on my camera. I knew exactly the lighting, the focal point, the depth of field, the framing. I knew it all. So I'm standing there and my finger is on that trigger. Now you'll see his foot slightly lifted. Yeah. It's because he turned to see if I was still there. So the second he started to turn, I pressed that button and I ran. I won the Australian Institute Professional Photographers Travel Award for the year. Like, this was a national, international contest with this photo. But it's the vision. Like, this photo without this man would be nothing. And what a narrative. I called it Mafia Briefcase Swap. That's what I mean about proactively seeing the situation and thinking, I know what I want. How am I going to get there? So before next week, I want you to think about why you take photos. What drives you? What do you want your photos to look like? Understand what you like in photos. When you're looking, if you've got photographic books, which ones do you like? What do you like about them? That's the sort of thing that you want to do, so that next time you're out shooting, you can start to put some of that into play. But I also want you to revise last week's notes, because there's no point in having an amazing concept like me following this man for 2 hours if I didn't know how to set my camera and got a blurred, dodgy shot. You need both the right and left frame in operation.